It's interesting that on this feast of the Solemnity of Jesus Christ, King of the universe, the gospel we're given doesn't present a triumphant, conquering king, but rather presents a conversation between Jesus and Pilate. And I would guess that most people miss what's most important in this gospel. I did for most of my life until it was a combination of reading and praying about it. But Jesus and Pilate have this conversation and they're missing each other. They're using the same word, but they're speaking about different things. So remember this. Jesus was handed over by the Jews for a religious infraction, blasphemy. Pilate couldn't care less about blasphemy. Jesus was killed by the Romans because of a political crime, treason. The Roman emperors and governors and whatever else were very antsy about anyone taking over the throne. Between all the Caesars, who knows how many people were killed out of fear that they would take over ruling. Herod killed even 2 of his own sons because he was afraid they were getting too popular and so would become too powerful and depose him or kill him. So when they hear the word king, Romans in any governing position would get very antsy. Remember what Herod did when the 3 astrologers, the Magi, come to him and said, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews?" Herod was so nervous about it, he had all children they could find 2 years and under killed, just to be sure this king didn't rise up. That's what's in Pilate's mind. Are you a king? So now Jesus' answer makes sense. You say I'm a king. Because if I say I'm a king, you're going to think I mean what you think, what you mean. He says, my kingdom isn't here in this world. Right? If it were, my attendants would be fighting. Remember in the Garden of Gethsemane, they come to arrest him. Peter pulls out a sword, cuts off the ear of the high priest's servant, Malchus, remember? And Jesus says, put up your sword. Do you not think that my Father would send 12 legions of angels to protect me, to fight for me? Jesus isn't fighting for an earthly kingdom. He wants the earth to be converted, to come into his kingdom. But he's not fighting to take it over. And I think this is important to understand because I think we make this same mistake. We talk about turning our life over to Jesus, right? Talking about surrendering all to him. We're talking about letting Jesus be king of our... And because we're so used to thinking in earthly terms, I think, A, we don't understand him, and so B, we become afraid of him. Right? Jesus does not want to take over our lives. He does not want to conquer us in any earthly way. Right? I remember a few years ago when I was, for various reasons, which I won't burden you with, I couldn't decide whether or not to buy that Gladiator. And so I started praying. I said, Lord, what should I do? Should I buy it or should I not? Should I buy it or should I not? Silence, silence, silence. For months, I prayed this. Silence. That's why I have the 2021. It came out in 2020, but by the time I came to a decision, it was the next year, right? Finally, one morning, I'll never forget, I was sitting in the morning, and I just was frustrated. I said, Lord, do you even care if I buy it or not? And the answer came like that. Couldn't care less. I remember kind of sitting back in the pew. I thought, couldn't care. Jesus doesn't want to tell me what car to drive. He doesn't tell me. Now, there are times in some of the saints, right, where we do hear that he says, do this or do that. So I'm not saying he never does. But in general, he didn't make me become a priest. He wanted me to be a priest. I'm convinced of that, although I'm not sure why. But he wanted me to be a priest. But if I would have wanted to stay being a musician, he would have let me. I could still have gone to heaven as a musician, if you can imagine that. But, right? So he doesn't want to take over my life and tell me what to do all the time. Right? There's a beautiful couplet, I've mentioned it before because it comes to me a lot in the Psalms. I hold my life in my hands, but I remember your law. It's my life, right? I have a legitimate autonomy over my life, but not complete autonomy. I'm not the king of my, right? I live my life, I'm trying to, I'm not there yet, but I'm trying to move towards that. To live my life, but in service to the king. Right? There's no need to be afraid of Jesus being king in my life, right? And I'm not there yet. Again, I'm working on it. There's no need to be afraid. Think of this. Earthly kings become king by conquering and taking over. Jesus becomes king by laying down his life and serving. Right? Remember that lovely saying, or part of Revelation? Behold, I stand knocking at the door. And you've seen that picture, and I've mentioned this before. There's no doorknob on Jesus' side. Right? If anyone hears me calling and opens the door, I will enter and have supper with him. You don't have to open the door. We don't have to open the door. We don't have to give our lives to Jesus. But if we want to be in the kingdom, then we allow it. And this is the funny part. There is one sense that we become into the kingdom. There's another sense, and Origen has, I won't bother you with it, but Origen has a beautiful homily where he talks about the kingdom. There's another sense that the kingdom comes into us, right? And that's that revelation. If you open the door, I will come in. So yes, he's a king. He's clothed in majesty, as we just prayed, right? But it's not a majesty that puts us down. It's not a majesty or a power that takes away our freedom. It's just the opposite. Again, I'm still trying to get there, but our perfect freedom is going to be in the kingdom, not out of it. So, as we celebrate this great solemnity of Jesus Christ, King of the universe, let's not be afraid of this King. Let's not be afraid to surrender our lives to him, to turn over our lives to him. Let's not be afraid to ask him to come into our lives. He's not going to tell you to move to a different city or buy a different house or whatever. He's not going to tell you what washing machine to buy. He's going to free you so that you can begin to live eternal life now with God and live it forever, clothed in his own majesty.